Welcome, friends, to Tanked Up, the podcast, all about video games and beer. I'm one of your hosts, Ben, here with Aadil.
Hey!
Hey, it's a little Will-Smithisode this week. Lucy's not feeling very well, so she has taken the night off. So, Aadil, you and I will just be chatting a little bit. I don't think we've played a huge amount of games, but there's some stuff we want to kind of get into and talk about. And we'll have a couple of beers, maybe. We'll see how it goes. 1, 2, 10, 12, who knows? See how long we sit here for. 4 beers, we'll launch straight into them. What are you going to start with this week?
Where have I put them all? It's all gone horribly wrong. No, it's right here. I'm going to drink this beer from Bullhouse Brewing called Frank the Tank.
Nice.
It's Bullhouse Beer's beer number 29. It's a double dry hopped pale ale. It's 5%. New England style double dry hop pale, full bodied, silky texture. Extra pale base to showcase the aromatic, tropical, and stone fruit flavors of our Mosaic DDH. Yeah. And of course, Bullhouse is in Belfast.
Haven't had anything from them for a very long time.
Yeah, me neither. I got it. I cashed in some Beer 52 points and grabbed sort of things that I wouldn't normally get. It was like the theme behind my points cashing in was like, so and stouts. I was like, it's cold now. Stouts and randoms.
Get all the stouts, good. For me, I have got a couple of, or the beers in front of me are both from Marks and Spencer. I had to go there to do a little non-alcohol run. Oh, go on. Sort the cat out. Sort the cat. I don't know whether is he coming in or going out. He's going out. There we go. Couldn't hear him though. Didn't hear him in his mewling. But he's gone now. Yeah, didn't hear his mewling.
You didn't?
No.
Oh, well, I did mute as soon as he started. He started being real insistent, and it was like, oh, this is not going to get better. It's not very nice. So
That's fair.
Normally, I time it. I'm like, I can usually wait, but like with the three of us, it's like, okay, one of you two is talking, the other one's listening.
Absolutely.
I could just like. And then I was like, oh, he's already being super insistent. I'm just gonna have to walk away.
It's when he turns back
M&S
up about.
Is what I heard.
Turns up about halfway through and just scratching at the door, like "Let me back in, let me back in." Yes.
Luckily I'll have the earphones in and I won't hear him.
Yeah, I went to M&S. Kim wanted some alcohol-free stuff, and they supposedly do lots of alcohol-free stuff, so I stocked up on there. But whilst I was there, I also saw some beers which I haven't had before, from a very familiar brewery. But one who, another brewery, Burnt Mill, who I really like. Haven't had massive amounts of stuff from them recently, but they do, in Marks and Spencer's, a beer called High Hopes, which is a West Coast Pale Ale at 5%. You can't quite, you could just see it if I turn the can away from the light, but it's got this windmill sort of on the bluff, but it then basically just takes away the can art and shows the silver of the can kind of underneath.
Almost like smoke trails from my perspective.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Which doesn't make as much sense with the windmill. Like, is it on fire?
Potentially.
Oh, of course it is. It's a burnt mill. I'm an idiot. I'm just an idiot. Of course that's what it is.
This beer, as I said, 5%, a West Coast Pale Ale with fruity aromatics. Extra pale and light crystal malts make up the grist for a lean malt profile with a touch of sweetness to balance out the hop profile of Mosaic, Citra, Chinook, Simcoe and Centennial. That brings aromas of ripe citrus fruits and pine needles. You kind of expect Burnt Mill to have that big finish, as a lot of their beers do, to have that bitterness. So I think the last time I had something might have been a collaboration between them and someone else, and it maybe wasn't quite as, I wouldn't say good, but didn't live up to I think the standards of either brewery. That's what's in my head. I can't remember what it was, who the other brewery was, or anything like that. But I'm going to start with this. We'll come back to you for Frank the Tank.
Yeah, so I poured kind of quickly because that's right when I was pouring was when the cat started to
Mhm.
meow and I tried to do too many things at once. So you can see the results is I'm gonna say started as a three-finger head now down to about 2.5. It's quite a creamy head. I don't know if you
Yeah.
can tell in this lighting, but it's just like it is solid.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe some of this pour is justified as a result because it's not one of lately I've been having very like not so bubbly low head beers,
Mhm.
which means you can pour with a little more oomph than I did. But this one is not one of those. You can really smell the mosaic. I'm getting, yeah, some citrus, some tropical, just off the nose alone, which is double dry hop, so that makes sense.
Mhm.
I'm getting a touch of apricot, but mostly I'm getting, um, like a light mango. Like you
Okay.
know how sometimes tropical fruit is just like a vibe, like it's like no specific tropical fruit, just like the tropical fruit smell.
Mhm.
It's not quite that generic, but it's like that with leaning towards mango. So you don't get like the richer mango smell, but you do get the hint of it,
Mhm.
a
Just
song
like a
of
little a
mango.
little sweetness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So it's like a slightly sweeter than just generic tropical.
Mhm.
Also, you can see it's a bit hazy, even though it's quite light and straw
Yeah.
colored. But like you can still see through it. You can see
Mm.
my fingers through it, with the light shining through. But it's not clear. It's got a haze to it.
It was a New England, a double dry hopped pale, but a New England IPA or New England pale.
No, just a DDH pale.
Wow, why have I thought that? Strange. Just make
Uh,
words up in my head. It's fine.
yeah. Um, it it's this is a beer that's doing one of the things I prefer, which is when it's like dry hopped. It still tastes like it's dry hopped versus sometimes you have this weird betrayal is a strong word. I just mean a or bait and switch, but that's how I feel. I'm just a simple man. I smell a thing I want, and then I taste it. I want those things to be the same.
Yep.
And this is exactly what this is doing. It's just a lot more nuance there. It's quite effervescent. Surprising. Even if I'm not just taking a sip of beer head like I just did. um, I'm getting the actually. I'm surprised because the liner notes said something about stone fruit. Still not quite getting a lot, and I was so maybe it was just that hint in the nose that they wanted to
Mm.
talk about.
I suppose mango is a
Oh,
stone fruit.
I guess yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, I always think of it more as tropical, but you're right. It is technically a stone fruit.
Yeah,
So maybe that's what's
absolutely. We
going
always
on.
sort of say that when we talk about sort of those lighter stone fruits like peach or apricot and those kinds of things, and then mango always gets thrown in with those tropical fruits. But yeah, you could kind of say stone, right? I suppose it is a stone fruit, so you could say it on the tin, I
Yeah, but
guess.
so's avocado, and you wouldn't say ooh avocado. Sorry, I had like like a mental picture, but a mental taste of like an avocado beer was not.
No, no.
This is better than that. Um, yeah. So I'm getting this tropical taste. I am getting a little more, some nice light bitterness.
Mhm.
Um, and it's enough. It's just bitter enough that it's not that. It's neutral, maybe slightly drying in the mouthfeel, but that bitterness helps bring that out as well without making you like feeling like your mouth has become a desert.
Yeah.
So it's a nice balance there. It's really, I mean, it's 5%, but it's really easy to drink. I'm forcing myself to pause just because the finish is a little more interesting.
Hmm.
Still haven't quite figured out all the tastes. I think maybe that's where the stone fruit might be.
Okay.
Yeah, there's something like I'm like my brain has a catalog of like these are the things you've noticed, and there's something missing that I haven't described, but I can't quite put my finger on it.
Yeah.
It's very good, and like I said, nice and light. This was the beer I chose because I wanted to pretend it's earlier in autumn than it is. Right,
still sat on the stoop, hanging out, like that kind of weather. Yeah.
exactly there. So just enough like lingering bitterness, just enough toned down tropicality that you wouldn't have it in the summer, but you would welcome it in the fall. Obviously, it's the winter now, but it's definitely one of those pale ales that really does feel end of year rather than middle or early year. It's quite good that way. I'm glad it matched with the thought process that I chose it on.
Nice. Good. This burnt mel smells lovely. I'm getting a lot of the malts from it. Lovely sweetness, but also a little bit of that fruit from again, like yours with the mosaic. That kicks in, and not getting a huge amount. I know it says it's got mosaic, citra, chinook, simcoe, and centennial. It's a lot of hops in this. And as it says, a touch of there's a sweetness on that malt profile to balance out the hops. So, it's again like yours. It's maybe a little more orangey, not quite as straw as yours, but it's got that same sort of that touch of haze to it, but still almost kind of clear. The head on mine dissipated a lot quicker than it did on yours. Wasn't quite as foamy, but the flavour is very easy. But unlike yours, the nose doesn't kind of lead into the flavour as much. So obviously on that flavour you're getting a lot of those malts, that sweetness from the malts, and a little bit of a sort of a tropical fruit sweetness perhaps from the mosaic. But in the flavour itself, that is really kind of, as they say with the malts, balancing out those hops. Those hops absolutely do come through in the flavour. It's all very light. It's all kind of, it's not quite, the 8% sort of burnt mills that they're sort of known for. Those bigger bitter beers that I love from them. It's a little bit more reserved. You're still getting that bitterness. That is still there. That comes through quite quickly as well. There is a bit of a muddle of flavours kind of going on. And I don't know whether it's because of all of those hops in there that there's lots of different little bits that are trying to kind of find a way. There's a little bit of the sort of tropical fruits, a little sweetness from those. There's a little bit, a hint of say lime in there as well, giving it just that little kind of little kick to it as well. There's a little of this slightly more dank kind of fruit as well. That really ripe kind of mango sort of flavour. And you can sort of see, you're getting that sweetness, those tropical sweetnesses, and then that sort of that lime drags it down and drags everything more into that kind of like danker, earthier end of really ripe sort of fruits. And then it has that piney bitterness towards the end as well. So the flow works. And yes, it is a supermarket beer. It was like £3. It's 5%. Nice. It feels about right for kind of what I paid for it, rather than this being sort of like a, even at 5% being a £5-6 kind of beer. It feels like everything is just a bit reserved, and that I mean, like High Hopes is the name of the beer, but it's also kind of what I have for finding this beer, but at 8% from Burnt Mill. Exactly the same beer, but like just doubled,
a little more of everything.
Absolutely, and because those flavors, that flow is really nice. Everything's just a little too light for me, but it's really, I think it'd be a really good kind of, again, you're just out hanging around, going to the park to meet some friends or something like that. You walk past M&S, grab a couple of these. It's really easy to drink, and you wouldn't go wrong with just this on an afternoon. I'm going to knock it back incredibly quickly, I think.
I mean, that sounds great, to be honest.
Yeah, and it does have a dryness to it that at least lets the flavour, it dries my mouth out loads, but it lets the flavour linger enough that I'm kind of going back because my mouth has been dried out, but the flavour is still there. So actually, when I'm going back in for a sip, I'm just continuing this flavour constantly in my mouth, which is nice. Like, it's nice that it sits there for so long, and that when I go back and go, a little bit dry. I'll have another swig. I'm like, oh yeah, it's the same. I'm being presented again with the same flavour. Perfect, works really well. So yeah, I think it's well made. Absolutely, I just want it to be bigger. I think I'm gonna have to search out some Burnt Mill beers and find all their big boys.
I mean, that all sounds excellent. I will add, I think I know where you got the New England. I reread the tin.
Oh, it does say it.
It says a New England style DDH pail.
Right.
And then I did a quick Google, and it's because it's got their house New England yeast in it, which does explain a little bit of that slightly the way the bitterness is in the finish, the yeastiness. Also, I think, I mean, it sucks because finding that out also told me that one of the tasting notes is berries, and I'm like, oh, is that the thing that's missing? And it kind of is, but now I don't know if that's what I'm just being told by the internet. That's what I was tasting.
Just all the berries, every single one.
No, I mean, honestly, part of the finish reminds me of like that aftertaste of that blueberries give you. Right, that the very distinct but quite light. Mixed with the again, I think the yeastier finish, but it's on top of the sort of mangoey, light mango sweetness. There is this, like I said, like, berry sort of, not tardy like a raspberry, but like a not very sweet strawberry, like just that core. There is some of that in the core of the taste, but again, maybe I'm just adding that on now. But yeah, it's quite good. I like that it's quite light, but there's enough going on, even if it's just me being confused on what it is.
Yeah.
It's still an interesting thing. It's I like that there are these tastes, that aren't really fighting because nothing is, but it means that even though this is light and kind of fluffy-ish in the sense of just like airy, I can nurse this if I want to, because there's enough to like pick at versus this 5% beer is gonna go real quick, which is what I thought on my first few tastes.
Nice. I suppose we'll just see how the chat goes to see whether you've absolutely nailed it in a little bit. But we're gonna, I suppose, talking of big boys, come to you to talk about some scaly big boys. I suppose.
Yes, I played a game for a long time, actually. Normally my streams, first look streams are about an hour, and then a break of about another hour, sometimes shorter, sometimes a bit longer, but roughly an hour to just split it up. I ended up playing 4 hours, I think, of Jurassic Park Evolution 2 TM.
Jurassic Park or Jurassic World?
World, sorry. Yes. Yes, Jurassic World Evolution 2. And I played almost all of Jurassic World Evolution 1. It's by Frontier Games, who've done, what is their big park one? Planet
Coaster,
yeah. And they have a Zooey one as well, I think. But like, I had really high hopes for JPE 1.
JWE 1.
Oh fuck!
I mean, before we go into it, I mean, fuck the franchise for just changing the name. Like,
just make Jurassic Park 7. It's not like no one knows.
But it's the world now. It's not a park, it's the world.
Yeah, sure it is. So for those of you who don't know, I mean, if you've played any sort of theme park simulator type game, it's the same type of setup. You've got a map, and you have certain buildings that do certain things, and then you have attractions, except in this game series, the attractions are pens with electrified fences to put dinosaurs in. And you played a bit of JWE1.
Yes. Yep.
What did you think?
Oh, I did. I think we've got an episode where I talked about it. Actually, I'll probably contradict myself massively. But from memory, I enjoyed it, but it was a little bit limited in what it provided. It was essentially make pen, make dinosaur, put dinosaur in pen. And then, you know, various combinations and different issues that arose in the park that you had to kind of react to, different park sort of sizes and layouts that you sort of had to wrangle with as you tried to, you know, hit so many stars or something like that for visitors or doing quests and in these kinds of things. And it had seemed like it had lots of stuff in it, but it was all very repetitive. It was all very similar for the entire sort of playthrough.
Yeah, so I think I did all but the end of the last island because I just got bored. And yeah, basically it felt like a theme park game where you can build like a monorail and rides and viewing platforms for the dinosaurs and food stalls and this and that. But then, like you said, it was quite thin as a theme park game because you didn't have the nitty-gritty mechanics of like clicking on a certain, or even the gameplay of like, oh, what is this exact person doing and thinking, and all those things that you have in modern ones. But also all of the theme park management stuff was quite high level, and so you couldn't really drill down on a lot. You could kind of be like, oh, if I raise the price of tacos, I'll make more money. If I raise it too much, maybe people will be sad. But you can play the whole game and not really do that much, and there wasn't enough to do that making the extra money made sense. It was just, it was really a letdown because outside of like putting two dinosaurs in the pen and watching them fight to see the cool graphics engine, like there wasn't. It was very easy to get bored, and like you said, the missions were. Build it on an island so it's harder. Build it on a map that's artificially restricted to this size, and now do it on this other size. Like it was quite a bit of a letdown. And like I'm not that far in the game. I mean, I spoiler alert, I naffed the last mission because I was kind of purposefully just trying to see what. The last task was like, make sure all the dinosaurs in your park are at 80% comfort or higher for a minute and a half. And like things kept happening, and I just kept bringing in dinosaurs, knowing that they would, like I realized
just
after a couple,
destabilize everything.
Also they never come in at 100% comfort, so the timer won't start if I keep bringing in dinosaurs. But I was kind of curious, and then basically there was a fail state in that mission of enough dinosaurs dying that you failed the mission, and I was like, cool, I'm stopping the stream now. But like the big difference is I kind of liked the plot because there is a plot. It does mean that you're not doing theme park stuff, which I also think is the key to why I didn't feel kind of like I was spinning my wheels. So the premise is dinosaurs have escaped across North America and they live in the forests, roughly. And so your first mission is working for the Department of Fish and Wildlife, because now they have a dinosaur division, because of course they would. And so you are like capturing some dinosaurs in the desert, and then you move to another locale, and then there's some nonsense about I work for the CIA, but also this, and I don't know who you are. You know, voiceover people telling you things, and you're like, okay, but what am I supposed to do? Oh,
wait, like I know that it kind of. And the first game did it as well, like interweaves the characters from the films into the games. And is this one like with this whole like with CIA stuff and all this kind of stuff? Is it throwing kind of like new characters at you more than say the first game did?
Yeah, I think there's an effort to make me like I didn't watch the other ones. I think I watched World and maybe the second one.
The one that was in the mansion.
No, I didn't watch that one.
Oh.
Maybe I haven't. I mean, whatever. So like it has Chris Pratt and his love interest, and they feel really stapled on because it's like, I can help you. You should build and it's like, we have some experience dealing with dinosaurs. And then you've got other people who, like, one of the guys is like your main contact for the DFW, and that makes sense. And then you've got, but like I said, the CIA person, I'm like, I started a mission, and this person's telling me all these things, and then they're like, and I work for the CIA. I'm like, then why are you talking to me? I'm a DFW person. What? And then they're like, oh, but I used to work for something else. I'm like, I think you're trying to like, it's a bit clunky the way that like they're trying to bring characters into this. Essentially, like the main guy you talk to is like, these are the things you need to do. Here's your next mission. It's like, okay, sure. And like the second map is, we poachers are in an area in Washington State. Now they've been scared off, but you need to deal with this poaching ring place. But like, take over and capture the dangerous carnosaurs and make their life okay, but don't let them run wild. Oh, now and then there's like, and then some plot happens. But it's like, oh, okay. So I don't mind that guy is kind of like, oh no, you have to do this, and this is like, because he's walking me through mechanics, and that's fine. But like, all the other stuff in the plot, I kind of wish it was just, it is good. Like, I like it. It's a lot better than the make a new park on this island, which was what the first one was, because it felt really like, what? And I don't have to go back to the other island?
Yeah, the first game was weird because it felt like, just like a tie-in game, right? Yeah, Jurassic Park's back. We need a game, or Jurassic World. We need a game for it. What kind of game can we have? Yeah, what kind of game can we have? Well, we can have a park management sim. Let's get the people who make really good park management sims to make it for us. Cool, fine. And it was, okay. This one, it'd be interesting to see how that story progresses and how you feel about that kind of when you get towards the end. Whether that, again, it doesn't necessarily feel like a tie-in anymore, but is actually an actively expanding on the lore of the newer Jurassic Park films. Because I know in the new one that is coming out at some point, they're bringing back Sam Neill and Laura Dern. So, again, it's a weird one, isn't it? Like, even the films are going, oh shit, how do we move on from this? Let's tie it back to the original films. So it'd be interesting to see whether this successfully, or even if it bothers, trying to expand the lore, bringing in other interesting characters, how the world of Jurassic Park kind of is going forward. But even if it's just
the world of Jurassic Park, because you could say
I know, because I couldn't say world.
Yeah.
I had to think about it. Just to see how it is going forward and whether it does that kind of successfully or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's I think why I ended up playing more of it, because it was like, like I said, some of the speech felt really tacked on. It's most of the stuff with the knockoff versions of Chris Pratt, and I can't remember the actress's name.
Bryce Dallas Howard.
Howard, yeah. Thank you. And it's those parts, it's just like, I don't think they're saying much. They just seem to be needing to be those characters. But the other characters are like generic video game characters. They're like slightly too exposition-y, but that's kind of how it has to be to a small extent, right? It's fine. And I'm curious about what the plot is doing, because I feel like, one of the things, it seemed like I wasn't DFW anymore, but then I was, and I was like, oh, so maybe the DFW. I think that's why I was confused with the CIA lady, because it's like, you've just told me DFW, and if I'm not from America, I might not quite get what that means. And now you're introducing other stuff. It was just a little clunky, but it's enough interesting thing. What I like is it makes you feel like you are a Sam Neill or a Laura Dern, right? Because one of the things that was kind of shitty about the Park Simulator version, especially because you weren't really making that in-depth park simulator, is that you were just exploiting the dinosaurs.
Right.
And this is kind of like I mean, it's weird because there's still profit margins and stuff. But like, you're running, and they call it a park, which I find very strange. Because there's like the one main building, if you click on it, you can close the park. I'm like, this is a park? I thought it's a series of cages that I found that a poacher was using. This is a park. like if it's stuff like that, it's like you've got huge licensing money. Maybe put some effort into relabeling it on a couple levels, or it's just little things like that. Like you could be a little tighter, but it is more interesting, and I like that it's focusing on the comfort of the dinosaurs, and thus far it could give two shits about making money. Although, and to be honest, like made a lot of money, and I didn't even notice it.
Right.
Which kind of pluses and minuses. One, I like that it's not like super capitalist like the first one, but two, it's like, well, I never really was hard up for cash, and I did max out that level in a way I don't think they intended someone to do. But it was just like I never, at not one point did I be like, was I like, oh, I'm gonna have to wait a bit to spend some money. But it is early days, because then it's like, well, just give me the sandbox then. Like, just
Yeah.
why are these here if they're not actually in the way? But yeah, so like that last map I did was like it introduced the expeditions and stuff, which was in the first one as well. Except, oh, this is the thing I wanted to say. I think why it works a little better is because the first one you are making dinosaurs from nothing. That's like you are Jurassic Parking. And what was frustrating was you couldn't really build Jurassic Park, but you were Jurassic Parking. Here, the dinosaurs exist and you're capturing them. So the expeditions aren't for fossils, where you have to get enough fossil material such that you can splice it with frog DNA to make a stegosaurus or whatever. That was kind of how the first one went. Here it's just like, there's 5 stegosauruses, and if you barely staff your expedition, you might get 4 instead of 5 or 3. Some will escape. And if you overstaff it, you'll get them all, but your staff also do research. Your staff also do healing, like fixing dying dinosaurs or dinosaurs injured from a fight or whatever. And they have fatigue mechanic.
Oh.
So if you end up buying like a couple of real fancy lads and lasses, you'll overwork them and they'll get frustrated. I can't remember the term, but their bar fills up and goes red, and they're like annoyed, and if they stay annoyed, they might sabotage your park. That's what the tooltip told me. So I got them to annoyed for the real, like the expensive ones, and then you put them on rest for 2.5 minutes, and I have no idea if by doing that cycle, because I got them to the red over and over, if that means they'll sabotage. I'm kind of curious to find out, or if it means that because I put them on rest as soon as they got frustrated, it'd be fine. But that's a very much more interesting mechanic than the price of flapjacks in the burger stand, right?
Absolutely. It makes it more, I suppose, of a resource management kind of game than park games kind of have been, because all of them are essentially just make some money. And money is your only kind of resource, really. If you don't have things, spend your money and buy them. You know, that is how things kind of revolve in most of these games. So it's really interesting. They've taken this different approach and they've put this kind of different story kind of thread in to take you through maybe not just the tutorial kind of level, but continuing on sort of through that. So I like that change that they've made. Makes it much more interesting. And of course, I imagine they've still got like sandbox mode and that kind of thing. So you can, if you don't want to run through all of that, you can just jump into a park sort of simulator type thing, just with these extra little bits like the resource management of people and things.
Yeah, so that's the thing I'm not sure about, but I do know that you've got global unlocks of stuff on the research train. I think the dinosaurs. So I think if you don't, you might be limited on what dinosaurs you can play with in the sandbox until you unlock, which is a fine trade-off. I mean, some people want to buy these games and just do the sandbox from day one, but I get why people want you to play their game. Because you brought up other modes, there is another mode that I'm really curious about, but I wanted to just go through the first, start the campaign and learn how the game works first.
Yep.
And I can't remember the name of it, but it's essentially it's like a series of scenarios from the movies.
Oh.
So there's going to be like day one, JP1. Oh no, the power's gone out. What do you do? Scenario, and those little kids in little balls that JP World JW1. God, Jurassic World 1 Infinite or whatever it's called. Is like there's gonna be stuff like that, right? Where and I'm curious about those, but obviously I wanted to learn a little more about the game play mechanics. Also, I was doing a first like stream, so you want to show the game off.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily do all the dumb shit right away, unless it involves goats. I mean, that's the thing that they've kept from Jurassic World 1 is there's actually a couple. So it used to be like you put plants and you had like plant feeders.
Uh-huh.
And then you had like carnivore feeders, and it would just be like a little metal plate that would open up, and from the ground, a steak would come up essentially, and then they would have to get refilled by your ranger teams on patrol. But you also had live prey, which were always goats. And one of my favorite memories of Jurassic World Evolution 1 were like finding out how many goats I could spawn in a pen. Just because they have funny animation and they like, that's fine. And then you're like, fuck it, I'll put like a few raptors in and see what happens. But like, honestly, the goats are hilarious. Goats are funny things. Ask the people who make Goat Simulator.
Yes.
So like, I always want to give live prey to carnivores, and it's always because I get to make goats, right? That was the theme in the stream, but it's also it's more fun. It also means you get to watch them hunt and stuff, which because the game is quite good at like not letting you get bored and having to do things. I realized I was barely looking at the dinosaurs, which is partly my own fault, and being on stream as well. It was like, oh, I could have gone slower and like explored the park, but honestly, it was just like, oh, and now this, and now this, and now this. It's like, oh, okay, I got into the gameplay, and so forgot that like one of the reasons I looked forward to the first game was because it's like, make a Jurassic Park and hang out in it, right?
Yeah.
And I think also because it's not a park, I fell into the play loop a little easier. But I like that you still could just like go and take control of a vehicle of the Ranger Jeep and drive around and then go into photo mode and take pictures.
Nice. Yeah, I did a reasonable amount of that when I played the first game, especially because taking photos gives you money. So
yeah. And sometimes a lot of money.
Yeah, odd. I sold a photo for like $40,000 of a dinosaur.
That's like the standard now. Yeah, it's very strange. Even like, this dinosaur's been drugged and it's being hauled off in a helicopter. And it's like composition bonus because it's centered. I'm like, well, it's not moving. And I got fucking nothing for a goat picture.
But I mean, people seen goats. People don't need to see goats no more.
People have seen trees. That doesn't mean pictures of trees are worthless. Actually, it wasn't well composed, that picture of a goat either, to be fair. Yeah, so I like that. I mean, there's a whole genome unlock tree that I haven't experienced yet. So I assume at some point there will be like make new dinosaurs. But I really like that it's not just make and then remix dinosaurs, because I think it's not why I like Jurassic Park. It's not why I like dinosaurs personally. Like, so I think that's one of the reasons why I really wanted Jurassic Evolution 1 to be good and World Evolution 1. And it just didn't work for me. A lot of it was because the gameplay mechanics outside of the theme park stuff was like breeding dinosaurs with different traits and a genetic thing, but like most of it didn't really matter unless you wanted to like make a really evil predator that got more crowds to get to...
There was a little bit of that tied into some of the missions, wasn't there? You know, get a breed a dinosaur over a certain rating and things like that, and you had to kind of adjust their different bits to get them up to that kind of thing. But it never seemed that warranted that you ever had to really delve into it kind of that much. But I'm glad that they've taken this second game in a slightly different direction, because what can you do apart from a few new buildings and a few new kind of dinosaurs and stuff to, you know, that kind of game? Apart from, you know, the graphics of the first game were already good, and from watching sort of a little bit of your stream, it doesn't seem like they've diverted much from that. It doesn't look
the weather
much
is
different,
better.
but yeah. And it will look, and it will probably be running better with a little bit more fidelity and various different things. But it's a similar kind of style. So they haven't changed anything like that for it, and it is fundamentally a very similar game. So I can understand why the changes that you talked about have kind of come about, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Rather than because we can all just go and play the first game because it's probably on sale for £5 somewhere, or you've owned it through, as I did, through like a free Epic Store game 1 month or week or something. So
the thing. Oh, I lost my train of thought for a second. But basically, I'm enjoying it. Oh, right, that's what I say is with the level that I ended it on. You had enough space to make a pen for each type, but they kind of were like, hey, you can put dinosaurs in their own pens, in the same pens. And I felt like that was a nice way of being like, if you want to crank through this boring mission to get to the next thing, you can just like ignore this. But I tried to do it, and that's actually why it took me a while. Was because I had a Brachiosaurus, and it was compatible with these things that are kind of like Triceratops, but they're not. I can't. Taurosauruses. They look similar, just without with a big plate. Versus, horns. But the species played nice, but the Brachiosaurus really wanted both like tall nuts and or tall fruit and forest, and these guys wanted like medium nut or something like that. And because I'm curious, right? I just refuse. When they were not happy, I made the pen bigger, and then I tried to find the balance, and it took ages to get to. It got to the point where like Brachiosaurus is fine with forest. These guys are fine. Brachiosaurus is fine with forest. Not enough medium nuts, and let's like cut some forest down. Like replace forest with medium nut or whatever it was, tall fruit. And it was just like, but then, and I think if I just had that to do, would have been fine because and it was my own mini game. I was just like, I don't want to make this bigger and or like split them off. I want to see what the mechanic, like how hard is it to balance an environment for compatible species? Because it's not just put them both in the same pen, they'll be fine. They have different needs, and that's a cool thing that it was clearly harder to do. And I think honestly, what was the hardest part was just that I didn't want to give the lone Brachiosaurus a ton of space.
Yeah.
And like that's fine. That was my own choice. I had the space, but I was thinking long run, like in the game, like I should learn how to do these things.
Absolutely.
But in the meantime, dinosaurs were coming in from the expeditions that I kept sending scientists off on because why not? Let's find more dinosaurs. I like dinosaurs, right? And they weren't happy, and then some of them came in with medical emergencies, and so then I'd leave, and then I didn't have time to, the balancing of all the, like I had like 6 or 7 different pens going, and TB outbroke and blah blah blah, and then a storm came and knocked things out, and I was like, I one of the reasons I wasn't itching to solve that last bit of the mission was because it was like, this is a very low level sense of what could go wrong in this game.
Yeah.
And it was good enough. Like I enjoyed it. I wasn't trying to rush through that minute to get to the next level, even though I knew it was like there's only so much I can do. Like I maxed out all the research I could in the map, and I'm pretty sure they didn't expect that to happen because who would have stayed on this map this long? But they gave me like 8 expeditions, and I went on all of them and balanced there's nothing else I could do on that map. After I retrieved the autosave because I let too many dinosaurs die. And the thing is, it was mostly because I wasn't paying attention. So this is the thing. This leads me well into my critique, which is the UI is not great.
Right.
So one of the things is, what I do like is you send an expedition off, and then a screen pops up, and they're like, dinosaurs are ready to be here. Do you want them? And you're like, or do you want us to wait for 2 minutes? And you can kind of indefinitely put it off for 2 minutes, like if you were, which I think it doesn't make sense in the real world, but it makes sense in a game that you can pause.
Yep.
So it's like, I don't really want to pause. I have other things going, but I'm not ready to deal with this. I haven't finished their pen. Come back in 2 minutes. So finish your pen, but I want to solve the TB problem in this corner. I like that it's not making me stop time, even though it's like, really, these dinosaurs are just gonna chill in the attached to a helicopter for over and over and over again. What are you doing, laps, right? That doesn't make sense, but it was good. But you're in the middle of something, and then it takes some time to come in, and then you're clicking on things, and then it's like, and then your cursor changes and says, where do you want to put the Torosaurus? And you click in the pen, you've just put a bunch of little raptor things. And they're like, oh shit, I'm doing that now? And then you click the other 3 in the pen beside them that you just finished making for this purpose. That's why you said come. And then this guy comes in. It turns out these guys hate each other, and he kills these 2 little raptor things, and he's injured before you can get him tranked and moved to the new pen. And you're like, ah, fuck. And like, part of like I don't know. I could have probably tranked them early, or I knew kind of where it clicked and like make a pen in the pen or something, knowing that I misclicked. But I was just really, at that point I was curious, well, how bad could this go? Turns out very bad. That's one of the reasons why I failed the mission. But the other part was just like, this wasn't me being like that absent-minded. Like, I know it was coming, but it also happened a couple other, like, it wasn't the only time and now you're going to pick where this, like, it's not like, are you ready to pick where they land? Okay, click, click, click. It's, they're coming and everything flips on you, and you just have to be kind of aware when you've told the game you're ready for dinosaurs, that like, hey, the dinosaurs are going to come. Your cursor is going to change its mode in the middle of you making a pen, or like I was trying to get someone to check out these newly delivered little tiny carnivorous dinosaurs, because I don't know if they're sick yet. So I'm actively trying to time manage, and then because of that, it killed things.
Yeah.
And it was just like, just a bad taste. Similarly, I feel like they didn't put a lot of effort in the keyboard mouse controls.
Okay.
A lot of things are button based, which makes me feel like it was optimized for a controller for consoles. But like things like I'm controlling the ranger vehicle. Ranger vehicle, you can either shoot a flare or take a picture or tranquilize or whatever. There's like 3 things. How do you think I switch my options?
A button on the keyboard, I guess.
Q and E.
Oh,
to go
okay.
click, click, click. But it's like, scroll wheel exists, or like, and there's no, like, I guess the big thing is like, there's no way I can just be like, I don't want mouse to look. Can I like hold down control and then just click on menus? No, like I don't get to use the mouse, but it's such a menu driven game. And like things like you have to right click to back out of things. So like if I'm like assign a task to a ranger mobile to like go check out that dinosaur, and then I'm like, oh, okay, and I used my mouse in its various ways, like holding right click moves you around, and whatever, right? WASD kind of can move your camera as well. Like I do all those things, and then I try and click on a thing. It's like, oh, I'm still in the ranger mobile menu, so all this clicking I've done to move around and me trying to click on something else, I cannot click on another thing until I get out of the ranger menu, and to do that I have to right click to back out of any menu.
It doesn't just override it with your new selection.
Yeah. But also right clicking to back out is like has a bit of a lag. It's like right click, wait, did that work? Oh, okay, it did. And so like everything just feels clunkier than it should be, especially for this developer, knowing that they made Planet Coaster and all these other games. It's like and it's like this game should feel like a dream with the mouse and keyboard. It's the genre that's like ideal for it. Instead it feels clunky, and I think it's because they've made design decisions on the controller that like engine wise won't let you do normal things with the mouse and keyboard, and it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
Which is why I think I was so annoyed when I like accidentally dropped the big Torosaurus onto in the wrong place, because it's just like, oh, of course the UI screwed this up, right? Like I was already kind of getting annoyed all throughout. And like there's little things like, it's like my task is to make sure everything has 80% comfort. I have a button that says management views, and there's no like management view of here's the list of your dinosaurs and like their generic conditions. what I can do is hit M for map, which then zooms out bird's eye view and makes it look like a blueprint.
Yep.
And you have like lit up icons, yellow for the power stations and whatever. And then there's little circles for each dinosaur. And then in that view, I can hover over them and it'll say
Right.
comfort level, health on and a little pop-up, or needs to be looked at. Because that's one of the things that I didn't realize was one of my pens I forgot to assign a ranger, and they were actually absolutely fine. It's just I had sent a ranger to them, but I didn't make a patrol station. And the reason why I was stuck in that map for so long, one of them was these guys hadn't been checked in on, so they were
right.
needing to be checked in. But that means, according to the game logic, not all of the dinosaurs were at 80% or above, but these guys were at 100%, but they weren't checked, which is fine. It's just.
So the game didn't know that they were at 100. The game knew that they were at 100%, but
the game knew that I didn't know if they were at 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? And it's like, I get that. That's interesting, and I like that. I'm fine with learning that on the fly. Like, I don't need to be handheld. It's just like, okay. But also, it was really hard to tell that was the case, because when you click on a ranger thing, like, basically, like, even the emergency shelters have footprints that tell you, or like the powers, if you click on the power thing at a power station, it'll give you the footprints of all the other power stations. And if you click on the ranger thing, it'll give you the footprints of all. But there's no easy way to be like, yes, what do my ranger station ranges are. Like, there's no easy way to get to that information. The emergency shelter, you click on one, and then the pathways that you've built will be in green or red or whatever. But you have to then zoom out to see if there's anything in red to say they need an emergency shelter here.
Yep.
But the only way, I think, to get into that view is to click on an emergency shelter, which, by definition, if you've missed a bit, won't be near
Yes.
the bit. Like, it's little things like that where it's like, this UI is really cumbersome, and you have, like, a management view console that doesn't give any of the stuff that I seem to need. Well, it gives some, obviously. It's not like those. There's, like, 3 views, but they don't really do. They're, like, park management type stuff. They're not, like, footprint map stuff, but almost all of these early buildings I've got are like based on you need to have a power station with power station coverage. They'll have a footprint, and this power station will service this area, and that's it. And what I kind of like about it is they run out of fuel and you have to pay to refuel them. That's it. Which, because you're in remote places, it kind of makes sense, but there's also not a good warning until you run out of power, really. Especially in the remote sides, right? There's no like quick button I can hit to be like, show me, what's my power like? I should be able to just hit P or like get a pop-up of a report or something. And so it's little things like that are way more frustrating than they should be. And then I don't remember it being this cumbersome, especially like I can't remember exactly how the clicking and stuff worked on the first one. Maybe I just wasn't as annoyed then as I am now, but like I don't remember feeling this aggravated with the UI and like having to navigate it, right? Because the problem shouldn't be I can barely tell if this is a problem even when I'm looking for it. The problem should be I'm too busy and I forgot to keep track of power. Now the power's gone out and this dinosaur's left.
Human error.
So like one of the things I did was I made a staging pen to drop dinosaurs in, because again, when it says pick up a Torosaurus, and like, okay, and then you go into your dinosaur encyclopedia and like, oh, I don't have any information about them because they haven't landed in my park yet.
Yep.
But that means I don't know what they need to make their pen before they get here. Okay, that's an interesting mechanic, I guess. It's weird, but sure. So then I was like, well, there's no point in me making a bunch of pens, and then I'll just make a small one, find out what they need, and then fill in the big one. But also, if they're sick, the staging pen's near the medical facility. That was my idea of design, right? Except I realized I had I accidentally sent 2 like missions out, so it's like, oh, I better quickly make a new pen for the next guys, and that's when I ended up having the one guy go in the wrong thing.
Guy,
right?
the wrong thing.
Well,
yeah.
But the thing is, when I was dealing with trying to make the small carnivores not like all die, I lost track of the fact that I gave these guys no food nor water, and then got pissed off and broke through the fence. And like that's the kind of stuff I want. That was my own hubris and fault, right? I was like, I've outthought you, game. I'll make staging areas, because that way I don't have to pause the game and fix the thing once they land. And it's like, no, I just made it so that they got landed and were really pissed off. Cool. I made one of them kill a bunch of little dinosaurs, and then the rest of them hungry, confused, and angry. Oops. Great. But that was fun, right? That was me bouncing back from a mistake. It's just when the game, and so that's what I want, right? But it is weird to me that I can't look up even like its genetic name. So it's like Torosaurus. Oh, is that one of the genuses that, clicking on this guy, it says, so I put things in that with the Torosauruses with the Diplodocuses at first, because I'm like, oh, they're kind of like Ceratops, sure. And then they were all not happy. So then I moved them into the pen with the Brachiosaurus, because I found out that the Brachiosaurus was allowed. And I feel like I should be able to plan that before they land, stuff like that, because it's just like the compatibility is just a list of names, and it's like, okay, it's this dinosaur, but it's not the list of the dinosaur names, it's a list of their genus or whatever, or their species.
Okay.
And it's like, that's a really dumb gate that makes me make minor mistakes, that it doesn't feel good. It feels dumb, because I went and I looked it up and like, yes, this looks like this type. Oh, it's not? Fuck. But like, if I'm a Department of Fish and Wildlife person, like, this information is knowable.
Yeah.
And I get like the comfort stuff, and like, oh, actually, it turns out this needs more medium cover or medium nuts or whatever. I'm fine with not having all that information on hand, but I feel like telling me they're compatible with these things, but then the type of those things not being accessible while I'm like, get more. If it just feels like arbitrarily cutting me off of information.
Yeah. And as you say, in a real world situation, that information would be available. You've in fact, in the game, you have lots of dinosaur experts popping in to tell you various things. Where are their notebooks? All of the every dinosaur textbook that exists ever.
Yeah, and I'm hiring scientists who are supposed to be experts on some stuff, and it's like, well, no one knows that this isn't like, again, and it's like, I know that these things, this thing is only compatible with these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting that, and as soon as one of their feet touch the ground, I know that is actually from that genus. But until then,
just random dinosaurs roaming the earth. No one knows anything about them. None of them were made. Obviously, they're all completely natural and stuff like this. So there's no information. Can never be found.
And but like, once they touch ground in your weird area of Washington State, suddenly, all of the breeds of dinosaurs are compatible with.
Yep.
Yeah.
A weird note, but
yeah.
I think a good place for us to finish on Jurassic World Evolution 2. Yeah.
Got it in one, we'll say.
Let's open up another beer.
Yeah, let's do.
What have you got next?
I've got this one. It is
Don't
mess with the Yorkshire Stout from Northern Monk. So it's a 5.5% stout. It has no flavor text, but a lovely tin. It's got this sort of slightly brassy, coppery text. Nice big lettering. Just a solid, good old-fashioned Northern Monk tin.
Nice. It's. I think this Don't Mess with Yorkshire branding has become a bit of a series for them.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely been other beer styles that name has been on. Not just stouts. I'm sure I've had like a pale that was called that at some point.
Yeah, there is. It was an 8% Dipper with Golden Promise. Oh, and they've also had a pale ale and rhubarb custard edition.
Yes, that's the one. Yes. Again, that was a supermarket beer, I think. But anyway, I digress slightly. Talking about supermarket beers, I don't digress. I have a beer that's mean, it's not quite the same as yours in terms of its kind of graphics and colours, but similar. But it's an Arbor beer, but a made for Marks and Spencer's Arbor beer.
I didn't know that that's where Arbor was selling their wares.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they've got some in Sainsbury's now, and unlike the Arbor cans that you buy in the bottle shop or anywhere else, it is only 440ml. So it's a supermarket beer, but it is salted caramel Billionaire Stout. So there we go. We shall see what this is.
How heavy is it? Sorry, percentage ABV.
It's 6%. It says crafted not by billionaires, but by Bristol craft brewers Arbor. This decadent stout cleverly takes 5 flavoursome malts to recreate the ultimate billionaire's shortbread in a can. Complex layers of sweet caramel, buttery shortbread, and smooth chocolate with a smooth, rich finish. Malt, biscuit malt, and chocolate malt. Interesting. It's got lactose in as well, so it's a milk stout. Or as they say, just stout with lactose. Sea salt and flavouring. Is it Wild who do the millionaire and billionaire stouts as well? So interesting that we've got now someone else very much using that name for a similar style kind of beer. So yeah, let's just see how that is. But two stouts to roll in with our second beers, and if you're sorted and poured, we'll come back to you.
Yeah. It's dark.
Expected.
Yeah, no one is shocked. It poured quite frothy actually, which is why I didn't finish pouring the full cup. Actually, very similar. The head is creamier and thicker than the last one, but surprised that they are that similar. Again, you can see that it's floating on top, kind of in the same way. It's just a bit thicker. It's nice and sweet on the nose. But it's got like toffee, I want to say, underneath. A nice toffee sweetness. Slight burnt acridity, just ever so much. That burnt is definitely there, and only slight.
Go back in.
Gotta make sure the rest of that mosaic New England Pale Ale thing is out. I like how effervescent this is, even though it's a stout. It's just got just enough bubbles to help bring out the flavor, which is also, I mean, it's 5.5%, so not super heavy for a stout, but it's enough to feel a little thicker, so it feels more stouty. Texture wise, taste wise, it's good. It's a little. I was gonna say light, but that's not right. The finish has got this like lovely burnt, slight acridity that I noticed in the nose as well, and then some nice malty. I want to say leaning towards the chocolatier side of coffee. That makes sense. Like just a hint of chocolate, but like it's a little fuller. So it just like sits really well in your mouth afterwards. The initial taste is got a peak of sweetness. So I'm really liking just the beginning of the finish. It's just this like nice, slightly burnt, boisterous sort of coffee-ish note. Again, chocolatey coffee note. In the malts, and then that fades, and then that burnt just gets a little more acrid. Or whether you notice how the burnt taste isn't fading with the rest. Yeah. This is one of those beers that has a nice long finish, And is quite full in flavor. So like you on paper, it should be one of those ones you nurse. But there's that transition is so delightful to me right now that it's like I just want to keep drinking it to get, because it's like it's not the long part of the finish that I am liking the most, which means it doesn't matter how long the finish is. I want to have that again. But we'll see if it sits. I'm gonna attempt to not pound it back.
Give it a moment. I know you'll be sort of silent. I know you're not tasting it to then describe, so you get a little bit of time and you'll sit while I do mine. But yeah, we'll see if I get to the end of describing my beer and yours is just gone. But of course, mine's a stout. It's going to be very similar to yours in kind of colour, but the head didn't pour similarly to yours. It wasn't kind of that nice foamy one. It was actually really carbonated. And whilst the head sort of poured at maybe sort of two and a half fingers, it disappeared really, really quickly, like just fizzed off. But when I cracked that can, I got lovely, lovely chocolate notes as soon as I cracked it. Big chocolate, sweet sort of nose. And when you get your nose into the glass as well, that chocolate is there, but you do get that caramel instantly as well. You would absolutely say that this was, as it said, it's a chocolatey caramel beer, definitely. Interestingly, whilst the beer fizzed a lot when I poured and that head disappeared, it's not that carbonated when I'm drinking it. There's a very, very slight hint. Again, like it was a little bit of carbonation, but just maybe to boost that flavour a little bit. But this is really kind of wet. It's not dry. It's wet and it's quite, I mean, not watery, but it's quite a thin beer. Again, it's another kind of like supermarket offering, which isn't a big beer, and I can understand. Again, this was about £3 again, so coming in at that kind of price point. Yeah, you're brewing at certain volumes and things to kind of get down to that, but it feels like a pared back Arbor stout. A little thinner. The flavour doesn't quite punch as much as it did in the nose. Getting chocolate. Getting that sort of instant hit of nice, kind of more milky chocolate as well. You do get a sort of a dark chocolate note in there as well, but there's this sweetness that sort of kicks in first with it, and that sweetness disappears quite quickly and leads more to a sort of nice dark chocolate kind of flavour. It's almost like a little bit of like a hot chocolate kind of flavour to it. But there is that little sweetness, that little hint of caramel in there as well. And it does have a biscuity sort of backbone to it. But again, that's really light as well. And the chocolate flavour sort of dominates over everything else, which is okay. But I'm not getting, chocolate and caramel and a nice biscuity kind of base, all in equal measure. When you have a Billionaire sort of shortbread, it's basically all biscuit, and then a very thin layer of caramel, a very thin layer of chocolate. So they are used kind of more sparingly. This feels a little bit opposite, that it's almost, more kind of chocolate and then thin layers of the other things instead of it being the other way around. So it doesn't quite, for me, it's not quite a Billionaire's sort of shortbread amalgam. It's not quite the same as that, just because those flavours don't quite balance out as you would expect. But it's a very reasonable kind of stout. Very easy to drink. And it'd be one that I would more than happily kind of sit and have on a very wet, windy sort of Sunday afternoon. So just kind of kick back with for for a little bit, but it's not one that I would kind of bring along if we were going to hang out and be like, hey, try this stout, it's amazing. It's definitely one where it's kind of like, yeah, I'll pick one of those up, sure, why not, I can have that. But there are definitely, I wouldn't say better supermarket stouts out there. I don't think I've had a huge amount of supermarket kind of stouts, but as always with all of these beers, supermarket beers are great. Just if you want to pick up a couple, go to the bottle shop, because there's amazing beers by Arbor, amazing beers by Burnt Mill at the bottle shop that will be better than these. Again, both beers feel just pared back too much to maybe meet that price point, that demand, sort of from the supermarket. But we'll talk a little bit more about this maybe in a moment when we round up our beers. I am going to keep drinking it though.
Excellent. I mean, it sounds very lovely.
I mean, it is. Again, it just needs more. That's what I mean. More.
I guess that's what I meant. Like, it sounds lovely. Like all it checks a bunch of boxes,
yes.
And then you're still like not satisfied.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
It sounds lovely. It might not taste as lovely as you want it to. Yeah.
We'll move back into games now and drink these. I've done nothing. I've played nothing. I've had no time. I've worked almost every evening. Work is kicking my ass at the moment, so I've found no time to do very much. I did play a touch of Streets of Rage 4, just because I'm like, I'll go back and play that for a little bit. I played a touch of Crusader Kings 3, just because after Adam put out his article and we had him on the podcast, I played a touch of that, but that's it.
Did you get into I mean, people might get tired of this, but I finished Inscryption last week.
Might have played a bit of Inscryption.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case. I just know you played more of it earlier, like quite soon after our podcast with Lucy gone.
Yes.
And us not wanting to spoil it because you haven't finished it. We might not say a lot, but I am curious. Well, have you? You will know if you've finished an act. Have you finished Act 1? Yeah.
Yes. So there's after playing what seemed like the standard kind of game, you're then presented with...
I like to call it the Spire game.
So yes, you have that. There's then this kind of like interlude, which was interesting, and then it jumps you into a different kind of game, but with similar kind of card based kind of mechanics. It presents it in a different way. And yes, I've done that for a bit. There was then another interlude.
Oh, so you did do that. Okay, excellent.
And then I'm on to the same bit, but more of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I don't know how much more there is to go.
So the interlude is like the AR overall arching sort of narrative plot stuff that is basically just hitting play in a bunch of movies.
Yes.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But so you are still in the same world as you were before, right? Like
yes.
You're just you haven't finished that stuff.
That bit. Yeah.
Are you? We'll go into this in more detail with Lucy and when you finish.
Oh, absolutely. When I'm done, we'll definitely do like a big spoiler cast. I think.
But did you enjoy it despite like this is the bit that's a little controversial. I think you've probably heard about it, but like, it stops being a roguelike. It's the thing that some people were annoyed at.
Oh, okay. There's then a sense, I suppose. Yes, it does stop being a roguelike completely. And if
it's not a roguelike.
If you lose, you can just do it again. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not bothered by that. I didn't even really think about it when I was playing it through. I think I just thought, okay, cool, I'll just try that again. And
that's exactly what I did, and I didn't even clue in. It wasn't until I sort of clocked that like it's a collectible card game, not a roguelike card game.
Yep.
That's what this Act 2 is. And I was like, oh yeah. And then I was like, oh, okay. That has its own interesting, given that you're not now like possibly finishing with areas. It's a very interesting twist because, at some point, you're the power like the problem with collectible card games as a longtime Magic player, or was one in my youth and more recently again, is there's a sense where you can solve a format if no one else's deck changes.
Yes,
you get more cards. You will more likely win over time, which is a really great way of continuing the spirit of the roguelike in this narrative section.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah.
But yeah, excellent, cool. Well, then we'll stop talking about that, except to say, do you agree that people should just play that game?
Oh, it's fantastic. Absolutely. I really enjoyed it so far.
Yeah. Cool. Right, so you played that, and then what was it? A little bit of Monica in your life?
A little bit of Streets of Rage 4 again. Just dips back into that just to play a little bit more because it's very easy sort of playing. And yeah, Crusader Kings 3, which again easy playing, but on a much larger sort of scale. Yeah. But yeah, that's it from me this week. So I know, Aadil, there was something else that you wanted to touch on that maybe wasn't, Activision being shit and Bobby Kotick being a cunt.
Yeah, I mean, I was avoiding that because
we'll mention it. We'll mention it.
I was avoiding that mostly because I didn't want to be sad because it doesn't seem like the fact, even though Bobby's been found out about knowing all these terrible things, company's still standing behind him. Doesn't matter, and that's just depressing to talk about. I recommend people watch the Jimquisition of this week. Was it this week or last week?
Yeah.
This week,
No, it was this week. Yeah, it's this week.
Yeah. Because it's a good rundown of all the things that he definitely knew about and how it doesn't matter, including like fucking up and not informing the board and the shareholders important integral informations about, like, not just because sexual assault and things are bad, but also they're dangerous for the share price, so they're legally obliged to. It doesn't matter. In fact, that's one of the court cases currently against them.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
but it's one of those, again, it's kind of this weird space that we are in as a people, this odd 24-hour news cycle kind of world that we live in, right? We see it at the moment in the UK with MPs and the whole issue around second jobs and the idea that they can lobby very easily and put people in for contracts and these kinds of things based upon the second jobs that they have. And it blew up last week. Ain't nobody talking about it now. It's gone. No one seems to care that some MPs have like second jobs. Some other stuff has happened. Boris Johnson loves Peppa Pig or some fucking stupid nonsense.
No, I think the latest thing is the fact that they're trying to gut the NHS and probably succeeding.
No, I mean, again, cyclical.
I know. I was going to say, I don't know. I mean, it's the bill that's on the table now, but my point is the jobs seem to be a big deal. And then this week, people aren't talking about it. So I don't have any faith that it matters that people are noticing how bad the thing for the NHS is going to be.
Exactly. But it's the same. We're seeing the same sort of thing in other industries, like in gaming, where, and again, Sony, Xbox, and Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo have all come out saying this is troubling fucking stuff. We'll be talking with Activision very, a lot about what's going on with this. And then we get another story about how someone is suing Sony for workplace discrimination. It's everywhere. It's every fucking company. It's every entity. And it's one of those that, again, in a week's time, no one's going to be fucking talking about it. Apart from us and Jim Stephanie Sterling and a couple of other people. This is kind of how it goes. The people that are thinking and playing Call of Duty, 85% of them got no idea.
And then
50% of them don't care.
Like, yeah, great. You put them women in their place, even though these women are making the shitty game you
yes.
love. That's interesting. I'm glad you brought Call of Duty up because the thing I was going to ask, are there games you're looking forward to playing this holiday season under the idea that you will have time? Because we had both spoke about missing playing FPSs with friends, and we talked about Battlefield, and now Battlefield's out, Call of Duty is out, and Halo is out, and with that, all that just sort of happened. But also, people are really liking Halo, which is on Game Pass. I haven't heard fuck all about Call of Duty, and I've heard really not great things about Battlefield.
It's weird, right? It's a weird kind of time. And again, coming back to Jurassic World Evolution 2, Frontier did come out and say that the sales in the first week hadn't been great, but didn't see that game advertised at all. I saw it nowhere. Suddenly it was like, oh, it's coming out next month. It's like, oh, cool, all right, and then it's out.
I didn't know it was coming out or even in the books until you were like, hey, we're getting a code for this, and I was like, wait, what? Yeah, I'll take that. I will have things to say if it's anything like the first one, and hopefully it's better. And yeah. But yeah, I literally didn't know it was coming out, and I think part of that is like I wasn't exactly looking out for it because I wasn't enthralled with the first one. But I'm really shocked that like I didn't know.
Absolutely.
I feel like, yeah, same thing happened with that stupid Terry Gilliam film that he blamed. Did you hear about this?
No, not Terry Gilliam. The other one.
Oh, am I getting the wrong? Oh yeah, he's dead. Lols.
What's his name? What the fuck is his name? Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott. Why do I think Terry Gilliam?
I have no idea. Blaming millennials and mobile phones for no one going to watch his movie.
Oh, you know why? It's because he's not dead, is he? Terry Gilliam came out with saying that he made an NFT, and I got my stupid things directors have said in the past 2 days confused. Yeah, Ridley Scott basically made a medieval thing with Adam Driver and Matt Damon. I saw one ad for it in this year, and I was like, wow, I didn't even really clock it was a Ridley Scott film. It was just like, and no one saw it, and he's blaming millennials and their cell phones like a fucking stereotypical old man yelling at clouds. Like it was, but like, they're also your like, okay, so they're your customer. Like, I don't know how I've forgotten how we got here, but like, even if it were the case,
I remember. We'll rewind in a minute.
Oh yeah, I got that again. Yeah, but anyway, even if it were the case that millennials are to blame for not going to the movies to see your movie because they're on their cell phones or whatever. Also, it's like it doesn't even make sense what you mean about millennials on their cell phones. Do you mean that they don't watch movies because they're watching YouTube or TikTok? I don't know. Makes sense. Makes sense, you old man. But like, even if that were the case, what you're saying is the art I make is not appealing to the people I want to consume it.
Yes.
Because if you are not making it for millennials, it doesn't matter what they're doing on their phones. You've actually said you want them to watch it, but are blaming them for not being enticed by your film. Like, these types of arguments are so... I am so up my own ass because I was successful for a long time. I haven't noticed that 20-year-olds aren't... Like, the 20-year-olds who watched Alien are the 50-year-olds now, right? Like, and the 20-year-olds who are now might not like your shit, and that's okay. Absolutely. But you have to be okay with that. Like, it's just this weird dissonant notion of, like, I know they're different because I'm going to yell at them about their phones, but also not know that because they're different, I might not have the same cultural cachet with young people. With young people,
absolutely. And I wonder if it's the same with Battlefield and Call of Duty now. You know, we've cycled through tons of Call of Duty. There's one every year. It's a Call of Duty game every single year. And again, this year, I haven't seen it advertised that much. So I don't know whether it was last year or the year before, when suddenly everyone's like, Activision spent 50 million advertising Call of Duty. And they're like, oh, that seems silly. I mean, did it? Because that fucking last game probably sold a lot more than this game has. I don't have any stats. Yeah. I cannot say that for a fact at all. But I would imagine that advertising works, strangely enough. And Battlefield, again, is it hubris and being like, Battlefield's back, baby, and they're just not advertising it really at all and going, oh shit, we should, this game's like 6 months off of release, but put it out, because this is when we put Battlefield games out. It's got to go out now. It's in this fiscal year. We've got to do it. Call of Duty's come out, so just release it. And they've gone,
yeah,
fuck. However, Halo, no one expected that to drop last week or 10 days ago, whenever it did. And supposedly, I haven't played it yet, but supposedly it's amazing. And everyone is just absolutely loving it. And it's definitely, as your kind of question led into this, things we're sort of looking forward to. I think Halo I will try, and I will see if that keeps me or has that same FPS pull of games that you and I kind of enjoy. See if that kind of does it, or pick up Battlefield maybe in 3 months' time when it's been patched to hell and it's a completely different kind of game. But none of those are the games I'm kind of looking forward to. My brother has bought me Resident Evil Village.
Oh,
Resi 8. Bought it for my birthday. I haven't seen him yet, so I'm seeing him in a couple of weeks, so he's going to give it to me then. So I booted up, and I have not played in any way, but I've opened it, Resi 7, just to see. I mean, I made the guy go in the loft. It says go in the loft, and I'm like, cool, I'll go in the loft. So I'm in the loft. I've done no more than that. So I've done all the first, maybe like an hour or something like that to start that game off. And I thought, while I'm waiting for Resi 8, I will play a little bit of Resi 7. It's going to have similar kind of vibes in terms of its first
they're
person
spiritual
sort of,
successors.
yes,
right?
yes.
They're not actual.
You're the same character. You are the same
you?
character. It is a sequel.
Oh, I thought it wasn't for some reason.
No, it is, but you're going from this kind of, I think from 7 at least so far, from this like Hills Have Eyes kind of setting, bayou kind of, you're in a house and all this kind of thing, to then the much more dramatic kind of setting of something like Resi 4. It's a little bit more baroque. It's a little bit more far-fetched in the characters and things that are kind of being presented to you and stuff. That I might play Resi 7 until I get Resi 8 and then just sack it off and be like, cool, that's got me in the mood for playing kind of Resi, even though I'm already kind of in the mood for playing sort of Resi 8, I think. It's just won a lot of awards at Golden Joystick. Is it Golden Joystick? Or, yeah, maybe, or the Game Informer one? I can't remember. Whichever one has just come out in the last couple of days. It won Game of the Year and a bunch of awards. So I'm kind of very much in the mood for that. I think that will be the winter game that I put sort of time into when I have time to play something.
Excellent.
Is there anything that you've got on the backlog, or anything that's kind of come out this year that you haven't picked up yet that you're sort of excited for?
Yeah. So, yeah, sort of. I've been meaning to play the Outer Wilds, and the people that talk about the DLC. Reminded me about my curiosity about that game. I think Lucy might kill me if I don't play Obra Dinn. And I've been thinking about it. Even after saying, boy, it's not gripping enough, I grabbed my Switch, I was in bed, and I played another 20 minutes of reading Hermitage thing, and I was like, oh, I'm in the mood for this type of game, because getting an Ace Attorney is an idea I have, just because I know those are quality games and they're this type of game that I clearly want, but they're lauded for the writing, and I've played the OG one when it was on the DS and liked it. So, and it has more of the actual detective mechanics that I was hoping Hermitage would. So it's things like that. There was another one. I'm enjoying playing a race or two of Forza a day.
Oh yeah.
Paradise Killer is the one that have. I'm going to try and play again. I'm feeling more of these intellectually gameplay mechanic-y, like not even necessarily strategy, but like thinking your way through detective gamey, solvey type games. So but one of the reasons I asked that question of you is because I kind of do want to be bad at FPS with my friends. And like, but like right now it's like between Forza doing the arcadey sort of quick in and out type game, and looking for these like detective-y type games, that's the only thing that's not being the itch that's not being scratched. Like even Outer Wilds, yeah, it's probably a little more. It's still like kind of a narrative puzzly. Like that's why people are interested in a type game. So I'm just that's sort of where I'm at. Is like I want more. I joked about playing all the GTA's. I still kind of wouldn't mind doing that, but like really, I'm not. In the sense of, but like Forza's scratching the itch that was for.
Right.
Which is playing like just generic dip in, dip out, blockbuster, kill some time type games. And now and what I really don't miss though is playing games with my friends.
Absolutely, and I think Halo would afford us the opportunity to, considering it's on Game Pass.
Because
and all of us
we
have
could hate it, but then we will have lost a half hour or whatever.
Absolutely,
right?
exactly that, exactly. And I think it's one again. Lucy isn't a big multiplayer kind of person, but I think something like that, especially if the two of us are going to be like, hey, it's like a lunchtime, do you fancy just playing a little bit, that she would be very up for a kind of jumping in as well. So
when we played thingy Back for Blood,
yes, yeah,
that was great, and it was like not just the two of us, it was fine. It was like, all right, I like this. And like earlier this year, do you remember that earlier this year we played Outriders? Did you remember that?
I did, but only because it's got some DLC coming out, which I did see advertised. A game I have seen an advert for is the free Outriders like update. Like, come and play our game again, please.
Yeah. What a weird state of affairs. I really liked that game for like 5 hours.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But again, a lot of that was like I liked playing with you, and except for like, I think I was playing catch up one day, and so played a few missions without you or something, or vice versa. Except for that, it was like, wow. And same thing, like
absolutely.
I have mentioned I have like an urge to play an RPG. Just an RPG. Canadian. Sorry,
been playing too much Moonglow Bay.
I should play more Moonglow Bay. I haven't played that. That's a Moonglow Bay is the game that made me be like, Lucy was right. I should have pre-ordered a Steam Deck. Because every time I grab my Switch and I'm in bed, I'm like, I want to play that fishing game. I can't play that fishing game. What was I saying? Doesn't matter. I've lost it. I've lost it all. Ben, I've lost it all.
That's all right. That's okay. Bit of Halo.
RPG.
Outriders,
right.
RPG. There we go.
Yeah. So like I said, I kind of want to play. Felt like playing an RPG, but it's more so that like then I thought immediately, wish we could play Final Fantasy 14. I'm like, oh right, I just want to play games with my friends.
Yes, yeah.
I see what this loop is. I was like, oh yeah, we can play another RPG. Oh, we know it was a fun RPG. That one where I played with that one with I'm not playing by myself.
And you've got, I remember, was maybe not last year, the year before, you picked up like the Outer Worlds, not the Outer Wilds, but the Outer Worlds, which again is like is an RPG, much more sort of Fallout-y kind of setting and stuff like that. But yeah, I think you've probably got in your library plenty of like single player RPGs that you could kind of lean into. But again, like you, at the moment I want to play like Inscryption, and then I want to play games with my friends. If I'm gonna play Battlefield, it's gonna be with people. I'm not just gonna pick it up and play it by myself. Don't want to do that. Same with like Call of Duty. I haven't played Call of Duty in years, so that one's out the door. But Halo Infinite, I haven't even thought about it. I haven't touched it. Haven't gone into the multiplayer. It would be if you said, hey, do you have like Tuesday lunchtime? Do you have an hour free Tuesday lunchtime? Yes, I do. Let's play it. Done. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what we all want, I think, during the winter months. Maybe that's part of it as well, isn't it? You're not going out quite as much. You're not sort of seeing people and sitting in the park and hanging out and seeing friends so much. So suddenly, gaming online with friends becomes a bit of a nice social outlet to lean into. And that's like when we were playing Battlefield 1 for, absolutely ages. That was from like October until the new year, at least. When
it was longer,
for months that we were playing that, and that was over the kind of the autumn, winter, early spring, into the summer sort of thing. So it was through those kind of like darker months where like, yes, this is what gives me my social interaction right now with humans, and as all of us lent into during that like first lockdown last year, like let's all play like Jackbox or do a quiz or just to speak and see someone. Or something. Yeah. Cool. Let's finish there this evening. Nice little ranty conversation to finish out on this week. Aadil, we'll come back to you first for the two beers that you had. Is there a preference? Two very different beers.
Yeah. Oddly, I hadn't... Sorry, I've got some recency bias. So I really enjoyed these last few sips of the Don't Mess with Yorkshire Stout. It got the like coffee slightly burnt aftertaste. Just once it like saturated my palate, it got a lot better. The coffee the malty coffee taste has gotten fuller and rounder.
Yeah.
But like, it still has that hint of sweetness off the top. But like, I'm now struggling to remember what the Frank the Tank tasted like.
Right, okay.
Which I think is, it's the problem with going for something that like this, even though it's only 5.5% stout, it's like nice full bodied. And like one of the things I recall saying I liked about the Frank the Tank was it was quite light without being weak. I kind of use the word fluffy to talk about its effervescence, but and so now I'm worried that I'm just going to say the Northern Monk because it's a bigger beer and I had it second.
Yep.
Oh right, this is the mango-y straw-colored hazy thing, right? I needed it to hold the can. It was like some weird sort of like science fiction show flashback. Like he touches it. I really liked it. I haven't had a lot from Bullhouse. I would definitely, on the basis of this, I would definitely seek out more from them. I do think that, it's a 5% pale ale. It's it has sour cherry puree and plum puree. It must be some of that berry and yeah. Turns out I didn't read the whole can. I saw ingredients and saw water and then in bold malted barley, and I'm like, okay. I liked it. I liked the fact that that sort of berry stone fruity stuff was kind of painted on, in the sense it was quite light and it wasn't the main flavor. But I think I'm gonna give it to the Don't Mess with the Yorkshire Stout on the basis of like I'm halfway through and I've had a very different appreciation for it. It's grown a lot and it feels a lot broader.
Okay.
Which was like my only hesitancy when I first tasted it. It's now that like I said, now that my palate's saturated with it, like some of the gaps that were there are gone. And like I've been on very close to this for a while. Like, you remember I was saying I really like that end, the beginning of the finish, and so kind of quickly went through that first half. Then we started rambling about games, as we are wont to do.
Well, as you were saying, you can see this being a beer that you could nurse.
Yeah, and then suddenly I was nursing it because the other parts of the taste caught up. I'm still enjoying that bit, but it no longer feels sort of singular. It's all kind of blending in. The whole finish is feeling a lot more acrid-y and coffee-y. Or the acrid, I just mean like that. Like it's not just coffee; it's slightly burnt coffee. It's not like just acridity, but like the whole finish is now feeling a lot more like that. So I don't feel like I'm that thing I like is not there.
Mhm.
Now it's like, oh, that thing I like is sort of part of this general curve, and it's all more. I'm appreciating the whole curve while still noticing that that thing is less of a spike, but it's still there. There's still that
Yeah, yeah.
burst of sort of rounded coffee. But I think that's why I'm going to pick the Don't Mess with Yorkshire Stout, just because it sort of matured over a half of the can
Mm.
to a beer that from one that was like very interesting in a kind of singular way, and just interesting in the rest, to being quite interesting the whole way. Or quite interesting is a good thing because I'm Canadian, and not a bad thing because I'm British.
Nice, good. I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to pick the first beer, the West Coast Pale Ale, High Hopes from Burnt Mill, over this Arbor Stout.
Interesting.
It was just a little bit too thin. It didn't. The nose was lovely when I cracked the can, and the flavour didn't quite live up to that. It's thin. It's very light in what it's kind of delivering, and that chocolate just dominates over the top of kind of the other bits that you would expect. You know, that malty, biscuity backbone to it, that nice sort of sweetness from the caramel. The chocolate kind of overrides those, and you kind of, you don't feel, at least I didn't feel, that initial sweetness that you get was from the caramel. It felt like it was more from the lactose, and that you were kind of having milk chocolate in a beer, which then just faded a little bit, and then you got it into be a little bit more sort of dark chocolatey with a touch of that kind of biscuit, and that was it, really. The High Hopes, which again, a lovely nose, but had this nice flow to the beer, whilst it was a bit more reserved, and the flavours weren't as punchy as I would like. For like a 5% £3 beer, very, very drinkable, very, very easy, and it has a nice flow. It's made very, very well, and I liked the way that the kind of those sweet tropical fruits moved into the more danker ones. You know, using that lime, using the citra in there to kind of move through into a more dank sort of feel, which then led very nicely into that kind of piney, bitter finish. So it was just a very well made beer, if a little light. So if anyone wants something a bit punchier and a bit bigger, I mean, you're probably not reaching for a pale, but even for a pale, this feels just a touch too reserved. But I will give it to the High Hopes this week. As I said, I think when I cracked this can, Burnt Milk made some amazing beers, and they're bigger kind of 8% dippers. You know, they're really big, bitter beers are absolutely fantastic. So if you haven't checked Burnt Mill out, I mean, check all these breweries out, obviously, because that's the thing to do. Drink all of the beers, try them all, and see what works for you. If you want to talk to us about the beers you've been drinking or the games you've been playing, you can do so in lots of different ways. We are Tanked Up Cast over on Twitter. You can email us tankedupcast@gmail.com if you want to throw down some long form thoughts or get in touch with us for any other reason. I'm at Nova_47, and Aadil is
At the Omniarch.
They are our social handles on Twitter and our handles on most of the gaming platforms that we are on. If you want to, you know, jump into a game with us, let us know if you're playing Halo Infinite and you've got an hour free on a Tuesday afternoon or something like that, or you want to see Adil's drive-atar in Forza and see that he's driven 4006 roads, or all of that random stuff that pops up as you're kind of playing the game. You should also go to outoflives.net, which is where we put up all of our thoughts on games, beers, TV shows, loads of stuff over there, and loads of our other contributors as well, putting up all of their thoughts on those things too. If you don't, you should probably subscribe to the podcast either on YouTube, on the Out of Lives YouTube page, or on your podcast service of choice. Rate, review us, that'd be very kind of you, and also tell your friends, because that's the best way for us to grow, broaden the conversation, get more people in. And you can come to our Discord as well. Give one of us a shout, we will share a link with you, and you can come talk to us all the time in the Discord, apart from when we're sleeping. We probably won't reply then. But that's it. I think that's
you
all.
never know.
Well, yeah, that's true. There is the occasional kind of 5 o'clock wake up. We're like, just look at my phone, I suppose. yeah, I think that's all the places. They're the beers we drank, they're the games we played. Aadil, you got anything you'd like to finish out on this week?
Not really. I think just play games, read books, be kind to each other.
Nice. Yeah, I echo the sentiment. For this week, we've been tanked up. Goodbye.
Bye.
www.outoflives.net